Hi everybody, I'm Zilla Blitz here at SDHistCon in San Diego. I'm joined by Liz Davidson and David Thompson, co-designers of the upcoming Night Witches from Fort Circle Games. David, Liz, thanks for joining.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Yeah, so Night Witches is about the 588th Night Bomber Regiment. They flew harassment missions against the Nazis night after night all throughout World War II, and it's a unit that's made up entirely of women. It's in fact the only unit that stayed entirely made up of women throughout the entire war. And so in the game, it's either soloable or two-player co-op. And basically you're two planes flying over unknown terrain. You find out what's under there. Sometimes it's not great. And you're completing a short campaign of missions that get increasingly challenging, but you do also get to level up a bit. There's some little skill trees and cards you can pick up as your pilots gain experience.
Yeah, and I would add, it's a game that we really wanted to be accessible, both to the wargame crowd, but really a game that allows wargamers to bring in sort of their non-war gamers, whether that's their parents or their children or their friends or whatever. And so it's a game that provides some familiarity to wargamers, but is intentionally designed to be accessible to a broad audience.
Yes, like this is meant to be something that you can play for fun if you just want to have a really fun afternoon on your own. Maybe you're a serious solo gamer, but you could also bring in your daughter, bring in your younger cousin, bring in anybody, even somebody who doesn't necessarily play a lot of games, and still have a good time.
What we tried to do was find a game that has a low level of complexity, but has a lot of interesting choices to make in every turn. So we're looking for a game that plays really quickly. If you're playing it solitaire, you're going to play each individual mission in like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
If you're playing cooperatively, maybe 30 minutes. So it's a very quick playing experience, but we wanted to make it tense really quickly. So things get hot fast, right? So you're uncovering searchlights and AAA guns and intercept aircraft and all these things. And so the game really quickly introduces a lot of tough choices, and there's really no right or wrong choices. There's just a lot of interesting trade-offs about the path you want to take. So we wanted the players to spend more time thinking about the tough choices than the complexity of the rule set.
Yes, and we did want to make sure that every choice was hard. So there's always trade-offs. You always have to give something away to get something that you need to make it through the mission. And we also, there's not really an AI or a bot. You're really playing against the game. And so everything that happens in the turn is really in your hands. And so we wanted that as part of the process. Because, solo gamers want to get back to play. It should be about the person who's playing, but also to kind of emphasize choice in the matter. So we chose the topic just because Dave and I wanted to do a game together. We kind of talked about it for a little bit, and this just seemed like the most interesting thing to try, and I'm really glad we picked it. As for the element of women in the game, actually, and this I think has a lot to do both with how the Night Witches present themselves in interviews, and also how I feel like as a woman who wants to be taken seriously as a professional. I sort of envisioned the same thing for the Night Witches. So we even debated whether we should call the game Night Witches, because in interviews they want to be called pilots. They really de-emphasize like, oh, we were women and it was hard for us to go to war. No, they're like, we were here, we knew what we were doing, we did our job, we were damn good at our job, and then we went home and were normal citizens afterwards. And so if you just play the prototype, it very much plays just like a straight up hex encounter game. It's meant to move quick and be accessible, but really if you've played any war game, it looks like a normal war game. And that's by design, that's by choice. And so it's really in the art and the aesthetic aspects of the game that are coming where you're going to see the most. It's about women, but that's on purpose because the emphasis is on the job that they did and how good they were at it with limited resources, as opposed to, they're women. In fact, there were men a unit over doing the same job. It's just that the Night Witches kicked more ass at it.
Yeah, I mean, we had a playtester once play the game and said, I want to feel like a woman pilot, and we're like, you mean feel like a pilot? Right, because this is the same thing. They were literally doing the exact same thing as their male counterpart units.
Yeah.
And so it could be a game about them, but the fact is this is an extremely easy but impactful way to show that women were doing the exact same jobs as men without having gender be a part of the game itself, the gameplay itself at all.
Yeah, right. Although I feel like a female designer. I don't know about you.
Well, let me put it this way: at the end of the day, this unit they were awarded guards designation.
Yes.
And if you know anything about the Soviet military, that's as a unit, that's as good as it gets. So their male counterparts did not, and they did, right? And there's a reason for that. So we'll let the players' actions and how well they do in the game see if they can match up to the historical success of the unit. There's basically two games going on when you're playing Night Witches. One is each individual sortie, right? So let's kind of describe what the game feels like on an individual mission perspective, right? So on a mission, you're going to have an objectives. It might be destroy this convoy. It might be rescue a downed aircraft, a pilot from a downed aircraft. So that's your overarching mission. You're going to have multiple sorties, right? Which are basically attempts to go out and accomplish it, come back home, recover, and then do it again. Over any given mission, you're probably going to do that on average about 3 times. So the initial flight out is usually one of a reconnaissance. You might have an opportunity to do your objective, but you're really going to be getting a sense of the lay of the land. The second time is sort of a mixture that you'll see more of the landscape, and maybe you have a first go at the objective. And then the last one is, hey, we've got a good sense of what's going on here, but now we're up against the time pressure, and if we don't get this done, it's not going to happen. When you're back home, there's a very, very quick part that resolves fast, but it's the resource management part of the game, if you will, where you're spending time to reload your bombs, to refuel your plane, and really to de-stress the pilots, right? Which is a big part of it. So that there's that sort of resource management piece that's going on, but then there's the actual flights themselves. And so like I said, there's that sort of initial reconnaissance. Well, you've got things popping up like AAA guns that you're trying to see. You want to see them and you want to stay far enough away that they're not shooting you down, but you don't have the luxury of just moving around the battlefield at a slow pace, right? You have very limited fuel, you've got to get out there. So it's all about sort of a risk management, I guess you'd say, or push your luck. I need to get to the objective. I can go the long way, but I'll probably run out of fuel, or I can go over this AAA gun and it very well could shoot me down, right?
Yeah, very much so. And there are also, in terms of fun elements of the game, I really like that we build a lot of different stuff into the campaign. So, the mission that most people are playing right now is just a convoy mission. It's like mission 2. But I'm really excited to hear about what people think of later missions where we have pop-up targets that you don't necessarily know where they are. You have to pull them out of the bag like any other terrain. We've got supply drop missions where the same bombing action that was used to destroy targets is actually being used to help out, but that also means that you don't have as much ability to fight back if you're going over guns. It's harder to eliminate targets if you're carrying supplies. And we've also got some meaner enemies that pop up later.
A few surprises. Yeah.
A few surprises, yes.
Yeah. And one thing we should talk about is how does resolution work in the game, right? So these threats are popping up. It is a chit pull system where there's a mixture of tokens in a bag. There's successes, there's failures, and then there's stress. And stress management is a huge part of the game, right? So there's not a lot of successes. So you're going to spend a lot of time turning stress into success. And the way you do that is burning fuel, which is probably your most important resource in the game.
Yeah.
You can add more failures to the same bag, so you can get an instant reward now, but make it much more difficult not only for yourself but your partner if you're playing cooperatively. Or you can just dump more bombs, which is fine if you're doing something right now, but it hurts your long-term ability in the game.
Right. Like if you have to dump an extra bomb early on in the mission, that means you're flying over. Early in the sortie, you're flying over the entire rest of the map without that bomb you were probably hoping to drop on the other side. So basically, there's ways to handle it when things go wrong, but all of them suck.
Yeah. And of course, naturally, the chit pull generates a ton of drama.
Oh yeah, especially if you're like a one-at-a-time person.
Right.
Awesome.
We still like each other after designing it. Our friendship has survived.
It's a miracle.
I find that hard to believe. You're such difficult people to get along with. Thank you so much for joining, Liz and David. And I will put some links down below, but how can people find out more information about the game, and when do you envision people be able to have it on their tabletops and enjoying the game?
So actually, we've been really public about the development of the game. So our very first conversation about the game was on my podcast. So there's several Night Witches episodes that just kind of cropped up over the last couple of years. I have a demo of an early prototype. I should probably do a new one soon. So it's really easy to find out about the game. We tweet about it constantly. As for timeline, I think we're doing really well. We're about to go to playtesting, like the developmental kind. We're not expecting any huge changes to the game at this point, but we need to make sure that our playtesters like all the scenarios, everything's gonna, flow nicely together, and make sure there's not anything that we just kind of missed, tweak the campaign cards. So we're doing well in the timeline, but we don't have control because our publisher is Fort Circle Games. Now, we're really excited to work with Kevin. He's great. But as for timeline, that's on him. We are hoping sometime late 2024 at the very earliest, but that would be probably a miracle. If not, sometime early 2025 it'll be out. I think it'll go to crowdfunding sometime in 2024.
Yeah. Hopefully crowdfunding early 24 will be good.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you so much for your time. And if you don't know, Liz has an incredibly popular and excellent YouTube channel covering a wide variety of board games, including a lot of in-depth coverage on Wargames as well. I'll put a link down below, Beyond Solitaire. Thank you, David and Liz, for joining us.
Thank you.
Everybody. Yep.